Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today I've got a review for you of a horror novella with a difference, North Border by Benjamin Percy. So this was sent to me by the publisher Neotext, and in fact they've sent me a few other things as well, and I'm really keen to dive into those now because I really enjoyed this. So it's a horror novella, and what makes it different is it's illustrated. So it has illustrations, throughout. I'm not sure how many there are in total, probably 10 or 12 or something like that. But every so often you get an illustration in the book, and that's something that's that's not that common, and probably particularly not common in independently published stuff, because I imagine it increases the cost of production quite a lot, and Neotext are, I think, quite a small publisher. But I thought it was really effective, and I was trying to think about other books I've read that do this, and I kind of came up short. I can't think of many at all. One obvious example is Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King and Bernie Wrightson, which I remember very fondly and do want to read again. So I remember the story of Cycle of the Werewolf not necessarily being that great, but the Bernie Wrightson illustrations, kind of really lifting it as an experience. The illustrations in North Border are by an artist called Francesco Francavilla, and that they were, as I say, they're really good. They really do add something to the book, and I think Neotext are an interesting publisher in that they publish all sorts of different things. So they do graphic novels and non-fiction, as well as fiction. But I think they quite often use interesting design techniques and things like that in their books. Certainly, look at their website; the covers are all fantastic. So as I say, I'm keen to read more from them. So North Border is a horror novella set on the border between the US and Canada in Minnesota, and specifically about this young guy who gets a job as a border guard. And it's very much kind of a character study. So you really get to know this guy. You get to know his kind of fears and concerns and things like that. So at the start of the book, he gets made redundant. He's got a wife who's pregnant with their first child. He's got some in-laws who are kind of interfering and slightly annoying. And you really do feel for his struggle and his attempts to get another job and make enough money to keep his family keep his family going. And you've got all this other stuff kind of swirling around as well, in terms of a cousin of his who's kind of slightly shady, and also some other people who end up being border guards at the same time and kind of on the same training course as him, who are clearly up to no good. So there's some really interesting stuff in there, and there's some interesting stuff about race as well. So the main character is half Native American, and a lot of the other characters are kind of white supremacists. So there's some interesting stuff going on about racism, and the author Benjamin Percy also talks about the central character's kind of conflicting feelings as someone who is half Native American about defending the border of a country that was effectively stolen from his people. So there's some interesting depth to this book, and it manages to cram it all into less than 100 pages. Now, clearly it's a horror book, and none of the stuff I've said so far gives any indication of that. But what's also going on throughout the book is a series of unexplained deaths where people on that border get ripped apart by some kind of creature. And as the book progresses, you learn more and more about what's going on. And Benjamin Percy teases it out in a really interesting way, and takes the book to a conclusion which I didn't expect at all. Which really quite took me aback when I read it, but which, the longer it sat with me, the more I liked. I thought it was a really good ending. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in this book. It's got a fantastic sense of place. You really do feel that kind of snowy wilderness type feeling of northern Minnesota. So Minnesota is one of the few states in the US that I visited, albeit it was a very long time ago and it was during the summer rather than the winter. But I did travel to some kind of more remote areas when I was there. And, it's the kind of place that, living in the UK, we don't really get exposed to, in that it's, you know, it's huge and vast parts of it are just completely empty, and in the winter, you know, it's a very, very cold place. So that sense of place and depiction of that kind of environment, I thought was really, really well done. And as I say, the central character is really well crafted, and you really do feel for him and care for him and want him to succeed in what he's doing. So yeah, it felt like a very complete and well crafted book. I really, really enjoyed the story, and as I said, particularly the conclusion. But those illustrations do just add something additional to it as well. I've, you know, if you'd said to me, you know, do I want illustrations in the books I read, I would have said no, I'm not bothered. But in this instance, they really did add something. So I hope you found that interesting. Do let me know if you've read North Border or any other books by Neotext. As I say, I think they're an interesting publisher, and North Border was certainly a fun read. So yes, as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're really good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.